You hear a lot of talk about running backs and the devaluing of the running back position in recent years in the NFL draft. And I get it, right? You look at running backs and you talk about the shelf life of their careers overall is shorter. You look at the history of the position and how you could find guys that produce at like Pro Bowl, All-Pro, and Hall of Fame levels all throughout the draft. So why would you feel as much impetus to have to take one in round one, which is a big departure, obviously from the NFL of 15, 20 plus years ago? Versus you have a position like quarterback and you could say, well, not every single starting quarterback in the league or every really good or great quarterback in league history was a first-round pick, but your best chance of finding a franchise quarterback, an elite quarterback, comes with drafting the guy in round one. You know what I mean? So, whereas sometimes running backs that should, based off of their talent and abilities and skills, be taken higher than what they are, you'll have quarterbacks that are taken higher than they should be because of the premium and the importance on the position. What I say that to say is running back is one of those spots where you get to day 2, you get to day 3, and you feel like you can find some really compelling and good options there. And I look at wide receiver, and for a different reason, I wonder sometimes if teams really have a hesitancy to spending first-round picks on wide receivers because of the recent history and trend of the position, and that you can find guys that can produce and be high-level performers at all rounds of the draft, not just at the top of round 1. And, is it worth it there? And frankly, a number of first-round wide receivers bust out, not in a good way. So you have to be careful. Well, man, you get to day 2 and early to mid-day 3, you can find guys that can contribute. It happens every year. It certainly does. And I think one of those guys that a lot of people are talking about that has that kind of bust out in a positive way ability, a guy that most folks envision going in round 2, maybe round 3, but could outplay his draft position, outplay other guys that were taken ahead of him, is Josh Downs from North Carolina. And I had seen a number of people talking about him and hyping him up. And when I watched him, I came away and said, okay, he's good. Similar to Marvin Mims from Oklahoma. I was like, I don't know if I quite agree with how high some of these folks look at him or feel about him. I felt like I was missing something. I felt like I could have seen more. I don't know what could be me. Downs, I think, is a good prospect. Easily a day 2 prospect. Should be taken somewhere, to me, in the middle of day 2. But, I've seen some people talk about, I take him in high second round, low first round. That feels like a bit of a reach to me. Now, granted, he's got great burst and short area quickness, and he's got pretty good vertical speed. So when you talk about taking wide receivers, you want them to be dynamic playmakers, especially if you take them higher in the draft. Downs can certainly be that. He's really good in terms of run after the catch. He's got quick feet, the lateral agility to make defenders miss. He's also got pretty solid hands, too. So you're talking about he's got quickness, he's got speed, he's got good hands, he's got the ability to make you miss after the catch. So far, so good, right? He also brings you extra value as a punt returner. And again, similar to what I talked about with Jordan Addison, you want guys that have some of that return game experience because it allows them to bring a little more value to their team. So you're not just tied up right away with putting all your hopes in them being a wide receiver. They can do something else and potentially contribute to your squad. What I really like about Downs, though, there is a polish there in terms of having the understanding of the ability to mix up his speed with his routes. Some guys have to be kind of slow and deliberate into their windup and then they go. Then you have some guys that just go one speed and that's all they do. It's just like in baseball, right? You could throw the 100-mile-an-hour heater, but if that's the only thing you can freaking throw, at some point in time, batters are going to catch up with it, and they're going to rock your ass. You got to be able to change speeds. You got to move the ball. You got to change your locations. And for Downs, he's got that subtle ability to change his speed within his routes. Also, for a guy that's relatively small, he showed an ability to go high point the ball. He was also able to hold up with contested catches, which for a guy with his kind of build and frame, was impressive to me. But I also look at this guy, and he's got a short and light frame, which you would assume is going to lead to him being exclusively a slot receiver at the next level. One thing that concerns me here, and it reminds me of Anthony Miller in this respect, for those of you that don't know, the wide receiver from Memphis a few years ago. I was really big on him coming out of Memphis and really excited when the Bears drafted him. Like, here's wide receiver one, here's wide receiver one. And he would have flashes of really good things, right? But one of his problems was he had a habit of fucking up his routes, or he would cut his routes short. He would improvise on them too much. He would take too many options that weren't even necessarily there. And it's something that was there, I guess, a little bit at Memphis I should have paid closer attention to. So trying to learn from the good and the bad of the past, it's all important, right? Learning in that type of shit concerns me a little bit. Because you cut the wrong route short, you're going to lead to turnovers because your quarterback's going to be thrown to a spot where they think you're going to be and you're not. Also with Downs, when you talk about a guy like him in the slot, you want to be able to bring him in, and you're running some 11 personnel, you're running some 3 wide receiver sets, what have you, and you want to be able to not, be predictable and be able to dictate to the defense that, hey, when he's in the lineup, they're going to throw the ball. But with him, he's not very effective as a run blocker due to his lack of strength and, frankly, some so-so effort, too. Like, Downs kind of has that thing of, if he doesn't care about it, he doesn't care about it. That's the impression I got when I was studying him in these games in 2022. It could make you a little one-dimensional offensively. He also struggles to get off of press coverage and had a number of focus drops, too. So, a guy that I would have liked to have seen be better catching the ball than he actually was. And you say, well, you're going to have Tank Dell ranked just above him. I do. Not much, but I do. And the difference is I think Tank Dell is a little more dynamic. Even though you can say he's a little smaller and he has similar drop issues, right? But I think he's a little more dynamic. I looked at Josh Downs, and the comparison, one that came to my mind was like Jamison Crowder, who was a guy that, coming out of college, he was actually underdrafted. A little bit, I felt. And there was too much focus on, lack of size and not enough focus on the other things. I think Downs is a good prospect. I just am not quite on the same level as some others that are really pounding the table for this guy. I just can't do that with the focus drops, the frame, the size, the cutting the route short, the so-so effort, and lack of effectiveness as a run blocker. Yeah, second to third round type of talent for me.